Did Pepe Le Pew really promote rape culture? Table Chatter presents Open Table Discussions. Let's start off by introducing Kimberly. Welcome to the table. Glad to have you here.
Glad to be here.
Next, we have Wedson. Thank you for being a part of this, as always. Glad to have you at the table. And we also have Nia. Thank you for returning to the table. And another person returning, Dom. Happy to have you here, as always. So today's topic is something that's gone viral, recently. It's a very serious topic. It's actually started from a New York Times columnist named Charles M. Blow. He put out an article saying that Looney Tunes character Pepe Le Pew has normalized rape culture. Since then, it's been a hot topic, and a lot of people feel that, yes, this cartoon should be canceled. This character is not a good influence on boys. Other people feel, no, we should preserve this character and just leave him there as a, somebody that we can learn from and teach young kids, how not to act. So I just want to get everybody's thoughts about this. Do you agree that Pepe Le Pew, his character, has promoted rape culture? And do you think Warner Brothers should permanently cancel this character? So what are your thoughts on this whole thing?
I absolutely do agree that he promotes rape culture. However, I don't agree that Warner Brothers should get rid of the character. They had, and they still haven't actually released why this happened, but they had a scene in the upcoming Space Jam movie where Pepe's behavior was going to be corrected, where LeBron was going to tell him, don't touch women without their consent, where he was going to get slapped, where he was going to reveal that Penelope now has a restraining order out against him. So there was an opportunity to revamp the character and create a space where he's more kid-friendly and just more human-friendly, where he's not, constantly sexually harassing people. So I think they should take that opportunity. I'm not a fan of erasing the past. I want it corrected. Because I mean, if kids don't see why something was removed, then they don't understand it still. Like you're not helping anybody by just simply completely erasing things. I think you need to show that there was a course correction. This was how it started and this was wrong. And this is where we went when we learned. But does he promote rape culture? Absolutely. Even as a child, Pepe made me uncomfortable.
I agree with that completely. I think we're all in the space of, hindsight being 2020, right? We looking back and in the state that we are, we can look at this behavior and we know just, off the top that this is incorrect. It is promoting rape culture. Even when we were younger, we didn't have the language to describe what that was, even though that's what they were showing us in cartoons. And that's how the boys actually behaved in school. They kind of, we would go out to recess and it was always this behavior of, me and the other girls in my classes always trying to get away and avoid and run, and them touching and grabbing inappropriately. And maybe they're thinking this is the game, because that's what the cartoon is promoting, that this is the game. But I agree. I don't think it makes sense to erase the culture, and really you can't erase Pepe Le Pew from the culture. We live in an information age where people can find things at any point, and like Nia was saying, they had an opportunity to course correct and actually show, this is what this character was, and this is what it actually means in today's, framing of the culture. And here's the opportunity to correct it and show, what you should be doing or what you should not be doing when you are dealing with women. So it was a missed opportunity.
I can agree with everything that was said here because it's it seems like they're canceling, so to speak, they're canceling everything, but making real changes, but doing something that like something effective. Because realistically, well, I can't speak for everybody else, but I haven't thought about Pepe Le Pew in 20 years. Like I haven't thought about like what it's doing, or how I haven't thought about that in 20 years. And but there are things that's been on my mind for the last for the last year that I can't get rid of. Things that that should be that should be changed, but that's not the topic here. But so it seems like for a lot for whatever reason, because I don't know where this came from, they just pick and choose what symbolic change they're gonna give as opposed to any real ones. And canceling a cartoon that, again, I haven't thought about in 20 years has do absolutely nothing. Like Kim and Nia said, you could have used the opportunity to do something where to show that as we learn, as we grow, as we grow, we become change. We do better. We learn better. We do better.
Mhm.
They could have done that, but instead, just like, oh yeah, let's just cancel this, and with no real explanation, or with no real, like, it's like, oh, like, not reasoning, because we get the reasoning, it's promoting rape culture, but can we go a little bit further and talk about the rapist that or the rape person who's obviously had no problem with it, writing the cartoon? Again, it is a cartoon. The same way you wrote it to be rapey, you could also rewrite it to do better. The same way, and also, why is it that nobody, like, when all this is happening, like, because somebody didn't just write it and then put it out there. It went through many hands, and nobody saw a problem with it. We all had to, had no problem putting it out there. And now we decide, oh yeah, let's just cancel the cartoon. Don't worry, all is forgiven. It's not. Do better.
So I have a couple of views on this. I guess first and foremost, I don't think there was anything extreme enough about the cartoon that would warrant completely like wiping it out from the library of like Looney Tunes and things. I think if anything, for that kind of material, like when you go back and watch like old Tom and Jerry episodes, like you might get like a little disclaimer. I think that's more appropriate. In this case, it's not like it's war propaganda or blatant racism or anything that's like specifically targeting anybody. On that note, I don't really think the character of Pepe Le Pew is promoting rape culture. What I think he more was probably back then is like a stereotype of a Frenchman. He's like a smelly, like affectionate, extremely flirty, touchy like guy, and it's probably written from like the perspective of like war veterans who were like fighting in World War One and Two, who like were over in France, and I don't know, like had a cultural, like, I don't know how to say it, like different, a culture shock of like how these guys were affectionate, whereas like in American culture it might not have been that way at the time. That's kind of how I see the character, and I never really saw the character as promoting rape culture. If anything, I always saw the character being depicted as like creepy and smelly, and he's like a skunk. And if anything, he also had a French accent, which like at the time there's probably like, no, like, no, why? I think that's how I feel on that note. Bouncing off of what Kimberly said, I don't really think the character, and sort of off of what Wedson said, I don't think the character of Pepe Le Pew really is that influential in the grand scheme of influential characters. If, again, I always saw him as a caricature, kind of making fun of somebody. And I honestly think that if Disney probably did way more to promote rape culture with their depictions of like Disney princes and like the dynamic of like how they interact with princesses and all that other sort of nonsense. But that's sort of where I stand on it.
I'm gonna jump in and give my thoughts as well. I think that hindsight is 2020, and if you look back from the lens, we're more aware of things. So if you look back on it and you see how the character was pushing himself on female characters, and they're trying to push away and he's grabbing them closer. I mean, I definitely think that this is a rape culture. Now, regarding Space Jam removing him, I think they removed him because they were, not that they don't care about the rape culture, of course, but I think it had to do more with money. because with the Space Jam coming out, I guess in the summertime or whenever it does come out, I think that leading up to it, if people knew that the character was in the movie without having the context of what happened, I think people would have been like, how are we gonna even see this movie, you know, if this character who promotes rape culture is in it? So I think Space Jam wanted to just nip it in the bud right away, so that way their dollars aren't affected. I definitely think it would have been a teachable moment though. And I think that's why they explain what the scene was. So it's like they killed two birds with one stone. They removed the character to protect their finances, but then they tell you what LeBron would have done to the character if you would have seen it. So it's not the same effect, obviously, but I think that's what that was about. So you guys can piggyback or give your thoughts, but I think that's why, because that was definitely a teachable moment.
Mm-hmm. That scene was removed over a year ago. So it was before the article came out. They switched, apparently they switched directors or something, and the new director is the one who actually cut that scene. They haven't, from what I've read so far, at least, haven't disclosed why that happened. But I mean, even if that was the case, like Wedson said, I don't know anybody who cares that much about Pepe Le Pew, which is why I'm confused as to why so many people are fighting against it. Like, hard pressed, I can't think of one person ever in my life, and I come from Looney Tune people. I can't think of anyone ever who said, oh, you remember that Pepe skit? That was the shit. I love that part. No, this never happened.
I understand why it's been pointing out as a topic of discussion, right? Because, we're looking back and the stuff that was normalized and the imagery that we saw in our generation. I think it is worthy of being, analyzed and criticized, because, we can look at a lot of our cartoons and there's imagery and words and, all kinds of things that are just so wildly inappropriate. It's crazy. But in the scheme of things, it's a cartoon, and you know what, we're living in the real world where there's actual real life danger, and we need to talk to our children about how they can be protected when they're on the streets and they're kind of dealing with strangers, as opposed to saying, oh, this cartoon it's inappropriate. Definitely. But I definitely think we have bigger fish to fry these days.
Cartoons is how kids learn, and that's why, like you said, when we're on the playground as young girls, this is part of the reason why we had so many issues with boys, touching things that they had no business touching and thinking that it was a game. Yeah. When certain images like that are allowed, and unfortunately, not all parents see what their kids are seeing, because not all parents have time. And that's just a sad reality. You can't monitor every single image that your child absorbs every single second of the day. You just can't do it. And this is somebody who's not a parent. I watched my brothers and sisters try to deal with their kids, and I'm just like, I don't know how y'all function. It's not something that's feasible to monitor every single little thing. And not all kids are comfortable asking questions, and not all kids know when they're supposed to ask questions. So if they see something, then they're being told, oh, this is funny, so this is okay. The part of the problem is the fact that they made it a joke. Like, I understand it's a caricature and everything, but Looney Tunes is still a children's cartoon. Yeah, there were things in there that are made for adults with the hopes that parents could watch it with their kids. So there are little asides here that as adults you get, but it was still made for children, and kids are still absorbing this. And when you make bad behavior a joke, they don't understand that when you go out in the street, this isn't okay. They don't understand the concept of caricatures. And not for nothing, but as a person who is part French, I still take issue with Pepe Le Pew. It's rude.
I guess my first question is a depiction of rape culture necessarily saying that you're promoting rape culture? Let me preface it by saying two things. Is one, I understand that, especially when it comes to children entertainment, there's a lot of malicious actors within the industry. So I will say that, A. And B, kids will look at anything and not understand what they're looking at, C. But also, there were a lot of things in those cartoons. Again, this is made back in the time of World War I, World War II, where they were like blowing each other's faces off. They were passing each other grenades. They were kicking each other off of cliffs. Like, there was a lot of other things other than a skunk trying to kiss a cat that wanted nothing to do with him. And again, is a depiction of rape culture promoting it when the cat is always seen as never wanting that. The character was never like put on a pedestal ever. If anything, the character was, oh, it's a joke, but it's always a bad joke. It's like, look at this loser. Like,
a couple of things. One, you know what? I guess I understand where you're coming from in terms of, like, you know, is it a depiction of, is it promoting it? Being that it's Hollywood, and the things that we find out about them, about, you know, a lot of people in Hollywood over the years, is how basically despicable a lot of them are. So a lot of times I would say, you know, the things they put out there is, in my mind, or the way I'm seeing it, is like, it's usually, you know, what they either is what they're thinking and what they are promoting. And, you know, that's the way, especially from what I've seen, you know, what we've learned about Hollywood over the years. As a parent, I can tell, you know, like Neil said, it's impossible. It is impossible to monitor every single thing your kids watch. Back when I had one, it was difficult. You know, even if I'm home all day, literally listen to, you know, everything she's watching. But now with two, it's impossible. So now it's like, so now you try to put like parental advisory on things, but then a lot of things that we're finding out, you know, like subtle jokes that, you know, that we're seeing, even now when we go back as adults and we listen to a lot of the jokes in some kids, you know, kids shows, we're like, wait, my daughter may not get that, but I get it. So now she may not understand it, through the eyes or through the ears of an adult, but now she's hearing this, or, you know, or he is hearing this, whatever, and then as time progresses, it becomes normalized. It becomes normalized, and then, you know, it's like it becomes like, okay, like you start to become like not affected by it.
You inoculated to it,
Right?
Yeah, so you like you don't
little bits and pieces until it's like just a part of you, and you think that it's normal.
I remember years ago, I had to, you know, watch this video in church, you know, called "The Truth About Hip Hop" or "The Truth Behind Hip Hop," whatever. And some of the things that, you know, they were singing, that I was like, wait a minute, like, I've heard this song 1,000 times, never heard this line, heard it from this perspective before. And it seems like it's something that just like happens in every single thing that we take in, whether it's movies, TV show, cartoons. Speaking of cartoons, there's 20 shows on TV right now that should be canceled, written off, and burned, and their writers should be burned right now. But we're not doing that. We're not attacking that. We're not talking about the ones that's being, you know, put out there right now, but we're attacking the one that nobody has thought about in 20, 30 years. But again, it seems it's one of those things like I always go back to. It's like, there we go with the, you know, fake changes again. It's all symbolic, not in order to not do anything real.
Let's say, cartoon companies were to take action on this. What do you think they could do if they want to really take action? So they're never going to show a scene where, you know, a guy character is pushing up on a girl. Never. There's no, like, how could they correct it? Would that even be realistic for them to make everything perfect? I'm just asking.
When we're talking animation, I guess we have like different categories of animation, but especially if we're talking Looney Tunes, I think at the time, all those cartoons were hand drawn. They were super expensive to produce. So they had a wider audience in mind. They weren't necessarily for kids. They were one of the programs on the 5 channels you had on your analog TVs, or, you know, like, I think the scope and the perspective of animation has completely shifted. So those cartoons that Wedson was talking about, that's probably on like Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network, Disney Channel, all that stuff right now, that's like iffy. You know it's iffy because it's targeted to those kids right now.
It's not like Looney Tunes was primetime programming. It's not like it came on at 7, 8 o'clock at night. It came on Saturday mornings when
the
adults have things to do, and, you know, you need your kids to sit and be quiet. And no, in 1945, I have no idea if Pepe Le Pew was on Saturday mornings. I wasn't there, so I'm not sure. But I know from our generation, it was a Saturday morning cartoon. These are all images that are geared, whether they started off initially like that or not, they became geared for children, and that's still part of the course correction. And a simple thing that they could have done to not make that such an awful message to send out to kids was at least give Penelope a voice. Like the fact that she wasn't allowed to speak was a problem for me. All she was able to do was push and run. She jumped on a barge once to go to some unknown country to get away from Pepe, but never once did they allow her to speak. That in and of itself was a problem. That's a simple thing that they could have done, is to actually give her a voice, to allow her to say no. The imagery of a man being able to push up on a woman with her not being able to say anything about it or even do anything because he just keeps coming, that's a problem. That sends a bad message to both male and female children. It tells girls that you're powerless, and boys, you can do what you want because she can't say anything.
So do you think Warner Brothers or another company should make a cartoon where something rapey like that is about to happen, then the woman shuts him down or defends herself, so beat him up or something? Do you think that would be good for kids to see, or do you think that should just be left out?
I don't see why we need to feed our kids those images, but since the character already exists, giving Penelope a voice, giving her time to finally say no would be a nice big step. You know, our generation's children don't remember Pepe Le Pew, you know, so they're not familiar enough with him for them to be like, oh wait, she talks. Our generation will be like, yes, Penelope, tell him. But it's different. So they have an opportunity now to, like Kimberly said, to course correct. And it's not necessarily because I don't want children, I don't want my nieces and nephews seeing people being sexually assaulted. But if you are going to have a character who is that aggressive and you want to keep him, fine. But make sure that kids know, girls, you have a voice and you can say no. You can run, you can attack, you can call the police. You have options. You don't have to silently accept this behavior. And boys, when you do these things to females or to anybody, there are repercussions. If you're going to keep the character, show the repercussions, show the kids that if something like this happens to you, you have the power to make it stop. That was the whole problem with Pepe in the first place. Penelope had absolutely no power and there was no stopping him. If they could adjust those images, then that would be a very, very different story. I'm not saying to create another character, but we already have one that's a problem. Fix the problem. Don't erase it. People are still being assaulted. Kids are still being assaulted. I mean, when you have images that don't show you being able to fight back or do anything about this behavior, whether you believe it or not, or you notice it or not, that message sort of sits in your head like, oh, well, this is normal and apparently it's funny, so I'm just going to let it rock because I can't do anything else about it.
I agree that it would be great to show her have a voice, but if you keep Pepe Le Pew in future, cartoons, I don't think it makes sense because literally that's what his character is all about. Like, certain characters, they have like certain things that they're always doing. Like what is it? The Coyote and the Roadrunner. It's always one chasing the other. Like they never do anything else. So what else does this character do? Like, so I feel like they would have to just cancel him altogether.
And I'm not going to miss him. I'm not saying they shouldn't cancel him.
I'm not going to
miss him.
I got no love for Pepe, so I don't care. But for the people mad that he's being canceled, they're offering an option, and those same people are still mad that they're offering an option to course correct because, oh, well, this is what this character does. Who cares? Change him. Like adults don't change. Like people don't change. You get new information and you change who you are. You either become a worse person or you become a better person. But with new information, you have the opportunity to change. Why can't we show that message to kids?
Nia, to answer your question, because we don't care to actually make any real changes. Because if we did want to make real changes, if we did want, want those, not to promote those things, when we have cinnamon colored person, come out and says, you could grab women by wherever, we wouldn't elect them and then, try to elect them once more. We wouldn't. That's not what would happen. We don't actually care. That's why we're not seeing any real changes. That's why we're canceling something that nobody thought about or making any real changes. That's why, because we don't actually care to do it. We just want to give you fake changes, fake things, to be outraged about, to be happy, mad, or sad about. We don't actually care to actually change anything. We want the status quo.
I feel like, it is, there's a lot of picking and choosing going on about who's going to be held accountable. Because for me, that's what cancel culture is about accountability. And it's just a lot of picking and choosing about who, when, who and when. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, we can, one of the biggest issues that I have for many, many years, not to just go off topic, was R. Kelly, right? And I grew up with his music. I loved R. Kelly, but at a certain point in my life, I chose not to listen to him anymore. And I used to remember battling with a lot of my family members about listening to him and saying what his music is promoting and all of these things. And it took such a long time for his accountability train to come in, right? But then on the flip side, you see somebody like Donald Trump, like Wedson said, who was never held accountable. And he, had all of these flagrant abuses and had spent years just being a complete terrorist to women. Women, his personal life was a disaster, business, everything. He was never really held accountable until January 2021. You know what I mean? And the way he was held accountable, for me, I don't even know if I kind of agree with it. Maybe that's a topic for another day, as far as him being completely silenced, because for me, there's danger in that. Where is he? What is he saying? Who is he speaking to? Like, I want to know. But yeah, it's definitely a kind of a picking and choosing about who's held accountable and who's not. So.
And there's also a double standard I've seen that people mention online, where they've shown like female cartoon characters, coming at men, and and then you never hear anything about that, So it's like, how come it's always, the male characters that are called out, but like these female cartoons, or even in movies, I don't want to open the floodgates.
And forget even cartoons or movies. Let's talk about real life. One of the things that's hardly ever spoken about is how women abuse young boys, and I think that's another stereotype that our culture has just, that reckoning has not happened yet. It's normalized a lot of behavior for young boys to, lose their virginity to older women, or speak out about their first sexual experiences being with, their older sister's friend, or maybe their mother's friend. And if the roles were reversed, that would be actually, that's rape. And so, there's definitely a lot of conversations and accountability that needs to occur in so many facets of our culture.
Because misogyny hurts everybody, and people don't realize that. And that's really all that is. That double standard, that's just misogyny hurting more people.
Yeah.
Because because all those messages are just saying that women can't hurt you, because we don't have that strength, we don't have that power, we're simply not capable.
Absolutely.
So none of that gets addressed either. I completely agree with what you guys said about, the female characters who are forever coming at the men. It seems cute, and she just loves him so much, and yeah, but if Pepe's wrong, then so are they. Those things still need to be addressed, and that's part of where misogyny needs to get, cracked down upon, because women aren't being held accountable enough for their bad behavior. And then it's always just, and then people are always, making it seem like women are constantly the victims of everything. And then when we do something bad, she's like, oh, but she couldn't have. But how? And then those things simply get ignored. The whole culture needs a revamp. We just boop, restart. We got to reboot everything.
So I think the way I can look at this is it's kind of like Eddie Murphy is, if you follow him throughout his entire career. If you go back and watch the stuff in the 80s, it's funny, but you can't make that joke anymore. But am I going to delete it off Netflix? No, I'm still going to go back and watch it. So I think if Pepe Le Pew was just a 30-minute block of his own thing, that would be one thing. But if it's a segment in a string of Looney Tunes stuff. So I don't think they should delete it. I don't think it should be played when most kids oriented content is playing. And I think if you are going to depict rape culture, and if you are going to depict something like that, I guess when we brought up women characters who do it to men, and you think of like the Kanker sisters and like Ed, Ed and Eddie. Like, do I think that needs to be canceled? Do I think any girl is looking at that and saying, I'm going to be that? No, not really. Do I think guys are looking at Pepe Le Pew and saying, I'm going to be that? No, not really. But I do think that showing an image of like Penelope fighting back is more impactful than the potential harm that those characters are doing on like the men or the women that are actually viewing the content. So if you are going to depict that sort of stuff, if you are going to make a joke out of it, if you are going to have a character who has a bit, you're going to have like, for example, a female or like main character in a cartoon, and there's like some guy in her high school, and maybe he constantly gets hurt, or he gets beat up, or he gets suspended, or he gets arrested because he keeps trying this shit. Like, if you're gonna do it, you kind of have to do it like that, or you can't do it at all.
I guess the last thing would be, if we're canceling Pepe Le Pew, I'm expecting, 20 more articles in the next 20 weeks about, all those other cartoons, we probably should be looking at. I'm not talking about older ones from 30 years ago either. I'm talking about ones from like right now. Let's try those.
Which cartoons are those? I'm curious. Because I don't know nothing past like Doc McStuffins and PJ Masks, so.
Oh, okay. Well, let's try Family Guy for one. I mean, that thing's on television.
Family Guy's not for children.
Well, no, of course not. But SpongeBob's not for children either. Because the jokes on SpongeBob is definitely way above, kids, But again, there's plenty of things we can pick at. Let's, if we're gonna do something like that, let's find something, something real, some real changes to make.
Okay. Let's go to Nia. Final thoughts.
I mean, I understand what Wedson's saying about, making real change. And I do see where some of this seems, performative. And there are definitely some jokes on SpongeBob that, if I'm sitting there watching with my nephews, I kind of just look at them just like, did they understand that? Okay, no, good. But a lot of the verbiage in some of these cartoons go over the kids' heads because for the most part, just like with their parents, they're not listening to what's being said. They're looking at the pretty pictures. And that was always my issue with cartoons like Pepe is it's the imagery. And it's not necessarily what was being said, it was the imagery that was the problem because images sometimes will stick in a child's head a lot firmer than words will. As Wedson, I'm sure you know, how many times have you told your kids don't do something and then they keep doing it over and over and over again? Exactly. So sometimes the words just aren't enough and the pictures have to match, which is why, like Dom said, showing Penelope fighting back, giving her a voice would help. And yeah, I'm sure there are a lot of other cartoons that need to be addressed. And it's hard because at this point, like, I feel like opening the floodgate for that to happen has to start with something that people know is problematic already, but nobody really cares about. If you can get people to sort of pay attention to something they didn't care about in the first place, maybe you'll get their minds open to stuff that they do care about now. Because I know people now who will fight for SpongeBob. They will fight to keep SpongeBob. I know people now who will fight to keep Speedy Gonzalez, and I have heard people tell me how racist they think Speedy is. So it's all a matter of a perspective. And for people who don't have children, they're coming at it from a very different point of view where they're just like, well, I didn't grow up to be a rapist, so why does this matter? It's just like, well, did you ever call a woman a bitch because she wouldn't talk to you in the street? That's part of the culture that allows that. And that's part of the bad behavior that characters like Pepe allow. That whole, well, you're a woman and I want you, so you should be mine and this is okay. That's part of the culture that's being permitted. So again, do I think he should be canceled? No. If you want to leave him on Looney Tunes, fine. Like Dom said, he's, a minute and a half in an hour-long show that people can go up and make a sandwich during. You don't have to watch it. Should there be a disclaimer so parents know, hey, this cartoon is still here? Absolutely. Give people the option as to whether or not they're going to watch it. If this is, being that this is such a big problem. If I'm babysitting and I know Pepe's coming on, but the kids want to watch Looney Tunes, I'm going to have them come with me into the kitchen to get a snack. And then we'll come back when, Bugs or whoever else comes back on. And to Dom's point that, they're blowing each other's faces off, that's very true. But how many kids do you know have access to TNT or to Anvils? you know, they don't, but they do have access to females.
They do have access to shotguns, though.
Which, well, that's a whole nother conversation about whether or not guns should be in the house.
Yeah.
Especially when you have children. That's a whole separate thing.
Yeah.
But you do have access to a person's body, and showing an image of somebody violating the boundaries of that access is still problematic. You know, regardless of the, you know, the explosions and the blowing up and then the Elmer Fudd going after bugs, because, but, and that just shows a natural relationship between a hunter and its prey. People still hunt. So like, it's not even like that scenario is odd. People still go out hunting. Not that I want to support that either, but it happens and it is allowed. What's not allowed is rape and sexual harassment. And that is a problem, because that's being projected to kids, and it's being projected as something funny, mainly because she doesn't have the voice to say no. But yeah, I mean, I don't think he should be canceled. Just like, you know, old movies that still portray blackface. I don't think those should be canceled, whether we like it or not. That's a part of our history and it's a part of our culture. So that's something that we still need to see, so that we understand what we have been fighting for and what we continue to fight for. There's a reason why you don't erase the past. You're supposed to learn from it. So do I think he should necessarily be canceled completely? No. Do I think anyone's really going to care? Like, no one's going to notice if Pepe's not in Looney Tunes anymore. Like, let's just be real about that. Nobody's going to notice that he's not there. But I think there should still be acknowledgement of the fact that this behavior isn't okay. At the very least, put that scene back in Space Jam, so at least the behavior gets corrected somewhere. At least we see it getting corrected. We can show our kids, yeah, I know you saw the cartoon when he was doing this that one time, but this is what actually happens to you if this is how you behave. Like, there has to be some kind of course correction. There can't simply be erasure. Like, that doesn't help anybody.
To Nia's point, I didn't actually think about why the character Pepe Le Pew was in Looney Tunes, but I guess when you actually think about the gag, it is that she's just like, oh crap, like, oh, I gotta get out of here. Like, it's not like, oh, let me go get somebody to beat him up or like scratch his face. It's like, nah, this sucks. Like, so to that point, that sucks. I didn't really even think about why it was in there, what the joke was to begin with. And so from that perspective, it is kind of cancel worthy, but again, it's a historical cartoon. There's no reason to revive it in like any new Looney Tunes content coming out. I still say leave it in. If I go back and I watch Tom and Jerry, I'm a fucking black man, but like I still want to see the racist shit that they originally wrote into Tom and Jerry, because deleting that from Tom and Jerry doesn't make it any less racist. Like, so yeah.
Okay. And Kim?
I think, you know, has been a great conversation, and everybody has put forth some great points. Ultimately, I don't think we should cancel Pepe Le Pew. Like, you know, my counterparts have said, it's a historical cartoon. I think it's good to look back on and you know, analyze and see where we, you know, made missteps and went wrong. And too bad that they took the scene out of Space Jam, because it was an opportunity to actually, you know, correct the behavior and show what, you know, what should have been happening to him the whole time, and what was happening to, you know, boys on my playground that behaved that way. You know, maybe in the cartoon, Pepe was running away and she, you know, she didn't have any voice, but that wasn't the real world, you know. So if any of the boys tried to behave that way, you know, especially even just speaking about myself, you know, when my mother taught me about people putting their hands on you and how do you defend yourself, I think that would have been important for young girls to see. And it was a missed opportunity. So we'll see what happens. Yeah,
definitely. And I agree with you. To close this out, I do agree that was a missed opportunity. Maybe they'll put it back in. Who knows? I think it would have been good promotion for LeBron too, since he's the star of that movie, because he could send a message to young girls that, you know, this type of behavior is not right. And I mean, what better person to send that message to kids? I mean, because a lot of times, you know, he talks about he wants to do more than play basketball. So this is an opportunity to talk about something important that's going to impact millions of kids who's going to see it. So yeah, definitely a missed opportunity. And I don't know, hopefully they could figure out a way to address it, because kids need to get that lesson. And I definitely don't think like everyone else said, the old cartoons should be erased. I think we should, be used as a teachable moment. I appreciate all of you for joining and being part of this discussion. I appreciate the people who watch this to take part in this, and please share your thoughts below and let us know what you think. What do you think about all of this? Thank you for watching, everyone. Thank you for checking out Open Table Discussions. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to subscribe to this channel and also hit the bell notification to be alerted when the next show is posted. Also, visit tablechatter.com if you'd like to make a donation, and follow me on Instagram @tablechatter, and DM me if you'd like to say hello or be a participant on a future episode. And please check out our other shows: The Bake Boss, Table of Cinema, and Table Advice.